Hey, I'm Liz from No Trace. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a super cute small tote bag that comes together with just 2 fat quarters. Purse is fully lined, which means that it's totally reversible. And this is a very beginner-friendly project, so let's jump in. The finished bag is about 9.5 inches wide and about 10 inches tall. It's fully lined and reversible. It has about 2 inches of depth down at the bottom corners, and it has 2 long straps that are about 40 inches long. I'm working with 2 fat quarters to make this reversible, super simple purse/tote. And they are both from Birch Fabrics from their Wild Fronds collection. And they are 100% organic cotton, which I love. First up, I'm going to show you how to cut your 2 fat quarters. So I have my 2 fat quarters on top of each other, and I've done my best to line them up really nicely. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off some of the selvage edge because my seam allowance is only a 1/2 inch. So if my selvage edge is larger than a 1/2 inch, some of it would end up in my finished bag. So I am just going to make sure these are lined up, and I'm going to trim off a little bit of the seam allowance so that, a little bit of the selvage so that it's less than a 1/2 inch of selvage. And I have a really big quilting ruler, which I love for cutting larger pieces of fabric. And I'm just going to trim off the extra bits. And as always, I'm going to save my selvage edges. I have a bag that I keep them in. I use them for simple weaving projects. I'm also going to be doing some needle punching projects with these, so save your little bits. Once the selvage edge is trimmed down, I am going to turn my fabric so that now I have the width in front of me here, and this is the height. So you can kind of see this pattern has a direction. These are bouquets of flowers that are running this way. And in the next step, I'm going to cut off 6 inches through both layers of fabric, again with my quilting ruler. Okay, so I've got my quilting ruler, and I want to cut off, I want the upper part of my fat quarters to remain at 12 inches, and then I'm going to cut off 6 inches from the bottom. And if there's any unevenness, I'm going to go ahead and trim that also. So I'm just going to first cut here. And then I'm going to come down. I'm going to trim off some of the unevenness from the bottom edge as well. So I'm going to set these pieces aside. These are going to become the outside and inside of the bag. And these are going to be the straps. And I'm actually going to cut these again so that they are now 3 inches. So I have 2 3-inch pieces. Okay, and now I'm going to stack them. I'm going to do one more cut. And I'm going to make these now about 1.5 inch. So I'm cutting through all 4 layers here. And I am cutting these to about 1.5 inch. So now I have 4 pieces in the white with floral print fabric, and I have 4 pieces in the pink fabric. And what I want to do next is join these in pairs. So I'm going to sew these 2 together, and these 2 together, and then 2 of these and 2 of these. Now I'm joining these as though I was making a bias tape. So I am going to make sure that I've got the direction working the right way here. If there is a direction, this doesn't really have much of a direction. Then I am going to place the corner on top of the other corner, and I'm going to sew a diagonal line. If my selvage edge is still showing, I'm going to move that up. And I'm going to sew a diagonal line. I'm going to join these 2 at a diagonal over at the machine. Okay, I'm at my dookie here, and I am going to sew straight down, but I'm also going to do a little back stitch at the beginning and the end. I'm just doing a straight diagonal line. Let me show you how it looks. Oops, let's get that needle up. And this is the finished look. All right, I finished joining these pieces into pairs. So in the next step, I'm just going to trim away the extra fabric from the seam, and then I'm going to iron the seam open so that it lays nice and flat. All right, all of the seams have been ironed so that they lay nice and flat. I'm just going to trim off the little extra bits from the selvage edges that I can see here. In the next step, I'm going to be placing these longer pieces with the right sides together, and I'm going to sew them so that I have 2 straps. And I'm going to sew them along both of the long sides with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, I'm going to do a little back stitch here at the beginning, and then I am going to sew all the way down and repeat that on both sides of the strap. I won't make you watch me sew the whole thing. Okay, both of the straps are sewn up. They are still wrong side out, so I'm going to use a bobbin to turn them right side out. But if you don't have one of these little tools, just grab the largest safety pin you can find, and you're going to want to grab on to one end of your strap and just push your safety pin or your bobbin into the inside of the strap while pulling the strap off the back until you get your straps turned all the way right side out. All right, I finished turning my straps right side out. I also ironed them, and I did a little top stitching about 1/8 inch away from both sides. You could definitely skip the top stitching if you don't want to do that part. Now we're going to cut the rest of the 2 fat quarters, which are still on top of each other and lined up. We are going to cut them in half so that we end up with 2 panels of the white fabric and 2 panels of the pink fabric. So it should be about 21 inches. So I'm going to cut these into about 10.5 inch panels with my quilting ruler and my rotary cutter. Okay, now that I have 4 panels, I'm going to put them with the right sides together. So I'm putting my 2 white fabrics right sides together and my 2 pink fabrics right side together. And I am going to sew just the bottom edges with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now, you could pin if you want to, if you feel comfortable or confident. You don't really need to pin them. You just want to do a straight 1/2 inch seam allowance along each of the bottom edges. All right, both of the bottom edges are sewn. In the next step, I'm going to fold the bottom edges up so that there is 1.5 inch from the raw edge, or if you want to just measure from your seam line, it's 1 inch from the seam line to the folded edge, and then I'm going to pin this in place. This is going to help to give the boxed corners down at the bottom edges without having to cut away any fabric and create scraps. Now that the bottom edges are pinned up, I'm going to add a couple more pins along the sides to each of these, and I'm also going to add a little personalized no trace tag. This is totally optional, but I like to include these in the bags that I make. So I'm just going to pin that in between a couple of the layers and add a couple more pins. And now at the machine, I'm just going to sew along these raw edges with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to do a little back stitch here at the beginning, and I'm going to go straight down to the end of this one side. Okay, so I finished this one side, and I'm going to go ahead and repeat that on the other side of the bag and repeat it for the other 2 pieces of fabric. All right, now that the sides are sewn up on the inner and outer material, it's time to put everything together, and we're almost done with this little tote slash purse. So I'm going to turn one of the layers right side out. It doesn't matter which one. Now I'm going to put the two pieces that are right side out into the two pieces that are still wrong side out, and just get them lined up in there. And I'm going to pin them together at the side seams so that I know the side seams are touching each other. So these are pinned together. And now I want to get the straps in between the layers. So I'm going to take one strap, and if you want your fabric to line up with the strap and the bag the way it is here, you're going to put your strap so that the same fabrics are touching each other. So I'm going to make sure the pink side of the strap is touching the pink fabric. I'm just going to tuck it down towards the bottom. And then I am going to measure 1 inch away from this side seam. So get my ruler out again. And I'm going to pin the strap. So it's only between two pieces of fabric right now. And I'm going to pin it so that it's 1 inch away from that side seam. Okay, so I got it kind of straightened out right there. And I'm just scooching it over. And I'm going to measure 1 inch from that side seam. And then I'm going to place a pin so that it's pinned in between those two pieces of fabric. And I'm going to repeat that for this strap. So this strap is also 1 inch away from the side seam. So I'm going to go ahead and add a pin. And you want to make sure that there's no twists in your strap also when you place it in between the layers. Okay, so this strap is pinned onto this side. Now I'm going to flip my bag around, get my other strap, and repeat the same process. So let's flip this around. We want it laying this way so that the pink side of the strap is visible when the pink side of the bag is visible, and vice versa. Just tuck this in, and I'm going to go ahead and pin these strap ends the same way. Okay, the other strap is pinned in place. I'm going to add a pin right here, just so things don't flop around too much. And turn the bag and add a pin right here. And then we're ready to sew. This is our second to last seam, so it's almost finished. I am going to be putting just one side of the bag under the presser foot. I don't want to sew my bag closed, of course. And I like to start before one of the straps. So I'm starting about 3 inches away from a side seam here. And I'm going to do a back stitch. And then I am going to go straight. And every time I come to a strap, like this one, I'm going to go over it. And then I'm going to reverse. And I'm going to go over it one more time so that there's 3 rows of stitches on my strap. And I know my strap probably won't fall out, which is always a good thing. It happens, but if you can avoid it from happening, that is preferred, obviously. Okay, I just finished sewing over the 4th strap, so I'm going to go a little bit further, and then I am going to stop before I reach my starting point because I want to leave an opening in my bag. So I'm going to do a little back stitch here, go forward a little bit, and then I am going to be done. So now my bag looks like this, and before I turn it right side out, I'm going to actually iron this opening. Just the opening. I'm going to iron it to make my last seam a little bit easier. So I'm just ironing it so that it lays flat. I saw this, I've seen this on other tutorials, but recently on a tutorial by Sew Becca for some cute little corner bookmarks. I did my own version of that here on the channel. If If you want to check that out, I'll link to that corner bookmark tutorial. Okay, so I just ironed the little opening there. So now I'm ready to reach in and turn both layers right side out through the opening. So now my purse slash tote looks like this. I love this fabric. It's so pretty. I am going to tuck the pink material into the white material. It doesn't matter which material you tuck inside because this is a totally reversible bag. And then I am going to take a minute and I'm going to kind of roll out this top seam and iron it all the way around. And then I'm going to do one more seam of a top stitch all the way around the top edge of the bag so that I can close up this hole and just give it a nice little finished look. I'm going to show you how I do my last little top stitch here. I put a lighter thread back in the machine so that it won't be as visible. And I'm just going to sew around this top edge with about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and just take my time and try to go nice and straight. Okay, and now I'm getting near my starting stitches, so I'm just going to go over them with a couple of stitches to lock them in. I trimmed all the loose threads and the little purse is finished. So cute. And you just want to push out those bottom edges so that you get that nice little boxed corner look. You could also add a snap here at the top if you wanted a closure for your bag, or you could add a little loop and a button to keep it secure. And if you're looking for more fun, easy purse projects like this one, I am linking to a sewing pattern that's in my shop that has multiple variations of a purse just a little bit smaller than this one, so check it out.